Yeah, so we're about to go into some pretty heavy content, or it could get heavy. And we were just talking about how we were going to discuss today and what we were going to discuss. And Storm brought it to my attention that we should do a blunt trigger warning because the topic is working well in trauma. So we might choose to share something that, or one of our own traumas that might remind viewers of their own. So you know, please make sure that you're feeling good about watching the show. If there's something that does trigger you, please feel free to reach out to your networks. If you need to extend your networks to our network, our email is ccandseith@gmail.com. We're not always going to be able to respond right away. So if you're feeling extremely triggered, please go to your network or, call emergency services. We have just a few moments before we wrap up the show. We are staying after for In the Young Leader Circle podcast, hosted by Skyly Storm from the Young Leader Circle. So I'm pretty pumped for that. But do we have any just closing thoughts that are just like burning to share for folks about working well in trauma that folks are just dying to share before we close out?
Friends make a big difference. And I've always had a hard time kind of like socializing while I'm in trauma or socializing while I'm in in a mental health state that's difficult. And so you may often see me be social and then disappear for several months at a time. So I always think like it's a really good idea to just like not be afraid and like tell your friends how you're feeling and just not be worried about what other people think, because it's usually not as bad as what you think it is. And processing your trauma is really important, and doing it with other people is a really great way to start.
And it's also okay to cut off relationships, and you don't have to. I know people are so against ghosting, but like sometimes just for protecting your own self, you just have to. And you don't own an explanation to anybody, and you don't own anything other than I'm okay. Please, just leave me alone. It's all right. I like what my mom used to say to me was, you don't have to be everybody's friends, but you have to be nice to them.
Myself, one of my biggest hurdles that I try to overcome every single day is trying to, quell the yes man in me, I guess. And I find that oftentimes, that yes man can get me into situations where I'm like, okay, there's a place now that I've gotten myself into where all my buttons are going to get pushed, or some of my buttons are going to get pushed. And I'm, putting myself in this place, just because I struggled as a youth for trying to fit in. And, now that it feels like, well, I have this chance, I don't want to blow it. And so I'll just say yes to this, yes to that, whatever. And like, no, it's okay to say no to things. And yeah, absolutely seconding what Skyly said about friends. It's really good to have friends in your corner. And, you just have to exercise that communication muscle as best you can in whatever way you see fit. I mean, I find sometimes it helps too if you have, like maybe some friends that'll understand, maybe some unorthodox ways of communication. Like maybe you're drawing a picture and you're giving it to them, and then they add to the picture and they give it back to you. Or maybe like you do it through music, or you do it through, whatever it is that you do it through. It doesn't always have to be, like talking or texting or whatever like that. Sometimes it can be a little bit more creative, and that creativity can help, help to, get that rhythm, I guess, for dancing with the demons, as Jess put it. So, yeah.
And it's okay to have emotions.
Absolutely, it's okay to have emotions, yeah.
Yeah. And to feel those feelings, and emotions that are maybe deemed negative, like sadness or anger. like Jess said and Naomi said, just do that audit and you know, dance with your vices and find that whole you, I guess, is what I learned from this episode. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
The one last thing that I want to add is just to just acknowledge the like global trauma, the moment of global trauma that we're going through right now. And you know, the like very public trauma of the Black community combined with the ways in which that we're experiencing COVID right now. I just want to like name that and remind us to be like patient with ourselves and to love ourselves, because this is a lot that's happening, and there's like there's a rupture in like the world right now that is also something that could potentially become really beautiful and healing. But I read an article the other day that was talking about surge capacity. And so that's like the hustle that comes along with crisis. And so like in the context of the pandemic, like a lot of people have been really tapping into this surge capacity, but are unable to sustain it. And so you're seeing the ways that that's like showing up. When I think about some of the like land defenders and the young people that I work with and like folks in community, we've been working at surge capacity our whole lives. And that's a lot, right? And there isn't often a break that's offered to take care, to pause, to like replenish or like recharge. And so I hope that like we also find those moments for ourselves into the future. And that's like part of a new radical future for us, is to just like relax, you know, and not feel the guilt of that. But I also want to say that I feel like because of these experiences, you know, like Black folks, Indigenous folks, folks of color, there's knowledge that exists in how to sustain through something like this. And so I really hope that people see that in themselves and really share these practices and like have conversations like this more. So I just really appreciate a space like this to be able to talk about this stuff, right? Because it's really affirming and there's lots that we can learn from each other. So thank you, everybody.